My dear friends, do you know what I believe with every fiber of my being, that God never intended for his children to live small, fearful, limited lives? No, never. He called you to abundance. He called you to victory. He called you to think richly, to live richly. I'm not just speaking of wealth you can touch and spend. Oh, no. I'm talking about the richness of a renewed mind, the wealth of peace, the overflowing joy that cannot be shaken. You see, the secret, the real secret, is not what's in your bank account. It's not in your circumstances. It's in your thinking. It's in what you believe about your God and what you believe about yourself. If you think lack, you live in lack. If you think fear, fear finds a home in your heart. But if you dare to think rich, to think with the mind of Christ, then everything changes. Let me ask you, when did you stop believing that you were created for more? When did you start measuring your worth by what the world says you have instead of what God says you carry? Oh, I feel this deeply. Some of you have allowed life to convince you that just enough is noble. That settling is spiritual. But let me tell you, you do your Creator no favor by shrinking down what he made to shine. To live rich is to walk like a child of the King, head high, heart open, hands ready to give and receive. It's time to renew your mind, time to see yourself not as the world sees you, not even as your past sees you, but as he sees you, rich in purpose, rich in love, rich in mercy, rich in vision. I'm here to tell you today, you do not need to chase after blessing. Blessing is looking for you, but it can only rest on a mind prepared to receive it. You want to live rich, start thinking rich, not in arrogance, but in faith. Think like the air you are. Think like a child of eternity. Think like the one he called, chose, and set apart for such a time as this. Voice softens you're not small. You've just been looking too low. Lift your eyes. Lift your thoughts. Lift your expectation. Because when you think rich, you start to live rich, and when you live rich, the world will see what heaven always knew about you. Voice quiet, full of emotion, you are more than enough, because he is more than enough in you. Richness begins in the mind because every action you take, every word you speak, and every habit you form flows from the thoughts you allow to take root. The mind is the birthplace of destiny. Before you ever hold something in your hand, you must hold it in your thoughts. You must see it, believe it, and speak it long before it shows up in your life. So many people are waiting for their circumstances to change before they believe they're rich, but they have it backwards. The moment you begin to think rich, to embrace abundance, vision, and divine possibility, you start to shift the atmosphere around you. Your thoughts create patterns, and those patterns shape your expectations. And your expectations, they attract what you prepare for. If your thoughts are filled with lack, fear, and smallness, your life will reflect those limits. You may not even realize it, but a poverty mindset will make you reject opportunities, sabotage relationships, and settle for less than what was divinely intended for you. But when your mind is rich in faith, rich in hope, rich in clarity and purpose, you begin to walk differently. You speak differently, you expect differently, your thoughts become the soil in which your future grows. God can pour out blessing, but if your mind isn't ready to receive it, you won't recognize it when it comes. You'll talk yourself out of it. You'll say, "This is too good to be true," instead of declaring, "This is exactly what I was created for." So richness doesn't start in the bank. It doesn't start in your job. It starts with a decision, a choice to think like one who's already favored, already called, already equipped. That decision changes everything. God did not call you to live small. He didn't breathe life into your body and place his spirit within you so you could barely get by, merely survive, or spend your days shrinking to fit other people's expectations. No, you were created in his image, the image of the limitless, the eternal, the glorious. He designed you with purpose etched into your soul and greatness seeded in your spirit. Living small is not humility. It's misalignment. It's forgetting who sent you and what you carry. The one who spoke galaxies into existence placed dreams inside of you, not so you would ignore them, but so you would pursue them with boldness. Too many have equated comfort with calling, or survival with success. But the truth is, you were made to expand, to grow, to step out, to rise above. There is nothing holy about playing it safe when God has given you the green light to walk by faith. Playing small keeps you in the boat, but He's calling you out onto the water. It's not arrogance to believe that you were made for more, it's obedience. Because He never asks you to live according to what you see. He calls you to live according to what He said. Look at every person God called in Scripture. None of them were called to settle. Abraham was called to go, not stay. Moses was called to lead, not hide. Esther was called to speak, not remain silent. And you are called to step fully into what He placed before you, no matter how big it looks, no matter how unqualified you feel. Living small is not your portion. You carry too much light, too much grace, too much power to stay hidden. The call of God is not average. It is abundant. It stretches you, pulls you, grows you, but it never lets you shrink. Thinking determines living because your thoughts are the architects of your reality. The way you interpret your life, the choices you make, the energy you carry, all of it is shaped by what you consistently think. What lives in your mind will eventually show up in your habits, your relationships, your work, and your spiritual walk. You cannot think defeat and live in victory. You cannot dwell on fear and expect to walk in peace. Every outcome you experience begins with an internal dialogue. If that inner conversation is filled with doubt, shame, and limitation, then even when opportunity knocks, you'll hesitate. You'll question your worth. You'll settle not because you had to, but because your thinking convinced you that you weren't ready or worthy. But if your thoughts are rooted in faith, expectancy, and purpose, you'll step forward even when it's uncomfortable, because your mind has already made room for what your life is about to receive. It's not enough to want more. You must think in alignment with what you want to receive. Your mind sets the thermostat for your life. You can pray for increase, but if your thinking stays small, you'll sabotage the very blessing you asked for. Some people are waiting for God to move, but God is waiting for their mindset to catch up to the level of what He's trying to release. That's why transformation always begins with the renewing of the mind. Not the changing of circumstances, not the fixing of problems, but the realignment of thoughts. Because once your thinking shifts, your living will follow. Your life will never rise above the level of your thoughts. So if you want to live rich, you must first think rich, consistently, boldly, and without apology. You are more than your circumstances. You are not defined by what you're walking through, what you've lost, or what has tried to break you. Circumstances are temporary, but your identity in God is eternal. The storm may be fierce, but the storm is not you. The struggle may be real, but it does not determine your value. Too often, people confuse their current season with their future destiny, thinking that because things are hard now, they'll never shift. But you are not what you're facing. You are who God says you are, even in the middle of the fire. It's easy to let life's disappointments shape the way we see ourselves. Rejection can whisper that we're unlovable. Delays can make us feel forgotten. Failure can try to convince us we're finished. but every one of those voices lies. Because under all of that pain, under all of that confusion, remains a person chosen, anointed, and deeply loved by God. What happened to you may have hurt, but it didn't cancel what's in you. Your calling wasn't voided. Your value wasn't lowered. Your purpose wasn't erased. You are not limited to your bank account, your job title, or your relationship status. You are not the sum of your past mistakes or the opinions of others. You carry divine DNA. You've been crafted with intentionality, designed for impact, and filled with potential that circumstances cannot contain. Even when the outside looks broken, your spirit remains whole. Even when everything around you says no, the word over your life still says yes. Circumstances may surround you, but they do not define you. Your story isn't over just because it's been messy. In fact, some of the most powerful chapters are still being written. What you're facing is a moment, but who you are is eternal, and who you are chosen, equipped, and unshakably loved will always be greater than anything life can throw your way. Living rich is about more than money, because true wealth cannot be measured by numbers in a bank account or possessions in your hands. It's not about how much you own. It's about how deeply you live. You can have riches and still be empty, or you can have little and still overflow with purpose, joy, and peace. Real richness is internal. It's the kind that can't be stolen, can't be bought, and doesn't depend on outward conditions. To live rich is to wake up with clarity in your soul and peace in your spirit. It's having relationships that are rooted in love and honesty. It's being generous not because you have excess, but because your heart knows the abundance of grace. It's walking into a room with presence, not pretense, knowing who you are, what you carry, and who you belong to. There are people who have millions and yet live in fear, always striving, never resting. And there are people with very little who live with such joy, strength, and confidence that the world can't help but notice. That's the richness heaven talks about, a wealth of spirit, a surplus of hope, a deep well of compassion that flows even in scarcity. Living rich is about having peace that anchors you when the world shakes. It's having faith that stretches farther than your fear. It's waking up each day with a sense of purpose that no job title or paycheck could ever define. It's knowing that your value doesn't rise and fall with market trends, because your identity is rooted in something unshakable. When your heart is full, when your mind is clear, when your spirit is aligned with truth, that's richness. That's abundance, and that kind of wealth attracts favor, builds legacy, and brings light into every dark place it touches. Don't shrink, shine. You weren't created to hide, to dim your light, or to downplay your gift just to make others comfortable. You were designed to reflect something greater than yourself, something eternal, something divine. There is nothing noble about shrinking back when you were born to stand tall. Playing small may feel safe, but it robs the world of the brilliance God placed inside you. Too many have learned to minimize themselves out of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being too much. But you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to be seen, not for your ego, but for His glory. When you shine, you give others permission to do the same. When you step into your calling with boldness, it awakens something in those around you. Your life becomes a signal that says, it's okay to rise. Shrinking won't protect you. It only delays the impact you are meant to have. Every time you silence your voice, second, guess your vision, or hold back your potential, you bury the very thing God placed in you to bless others. You were entrusted with talents, not to bury them, but to multiply them. And that requires courage, it requires visibility, it requires light. Shining doesn't mean perfection. It means authenticity. It means showing up fully, flaws and all, knowing that what you carry is powerful, not because you're flawless, but because you're willing. Willing to show up, willing to speak, willing to lead, willing to be seen. This world doesn't need more people who are muted, cautious, or afraid. It needs those who are bold enough to step into the fullness of who they are. You don't need permission to shine. You've already been called. The light is in you. It's time to stop hiding it. Blessing is attracted to a prepared mind because what you're mentally ready to receive, you're also spiritually and practically able to steward. God doesn't just pour out blessing based on desire. He responds to readiness. A mind that's prepared is one that has been trained to expect good things, to make room for increase, and to think in alignment with his promises. It's not enough to ask for more. You have to think like someone who's already living in the more. So often, people pray for opportunities, for breakthrough, for abundance, but their minds are still rehearsing old patterns of fear, doubt, and limitation. If your thoughts are stuck in yesterday's pain, you'll miss today's provision. If you still think small, you'll talk yourself out of big things. But when your mind has been prepared, when it's been renewed by truth, you begin to recognize blessing when it shows up, and you walk into it without hesitation. A prepared mind doesn't flinch at favor. It doesn't sabotage success with insecurity. It doesn't reject what it's been longing for. Instead, it welcomes it with humility, boldness, and gratitude. This kind of mindset doesn't wait for doors to open before it believes. It believes so deeply that the doors respond. Preparation is proof of expectation. When you prepare your thoughts, you are saying, I believe something good is coming, and I refuse to be caught off guard when it does. You begin to think like a steward, not just a seeker. You're not just asking for blessing. You're building space for it. You're organizing your life, your attitude, your focus to sustain what you've been praying for. That kind of mental posture attracts favor. It tells heaven, I'm ready. Because God doesn't waste blessing on minds that are not aligned with the weight and responsibility of the increase. The more your thoughts mature, the more you'll see that the right mind. It isn't optional. It's foundational for the life you're asking to live. Heaven already knows your greatness. Before you ever took your first breath, before you ever made a mistake, before anyone else had an opinion about who you are, heaven had already declared your worth. You were formed with intention, crafted with purpose, and sent here not by accident, but by divine assignment. Nothing about you is random. Your gifts, your passions, your resilience, all of it speaks to the greatness that was spoken over you from the beginning. Even when you can't see it, even when life has tried to bury it, that greatness is still there. It doesn't disappear because of pain. It doesn't vanish in disappointment. It may go unnoticed by people, but it is never forgotten by God. Heaven sees the battles you've fought, the nights you've endured, the strength you've built in secret. And still, it says, you are chosen, you are called, you are more than enough. Sometimes the greatest tragedy isn't that people don't see your value. It's that you forget it. You let comparison cloud your vision. You let failure speak louder than promise. But heaven hasn't changed its mind about you. The same God who spoke light into darkness looked at you and said, there is something in them the world needs. That greatness is not something you earn. It's something you carry. You don't have to prove yourself to be valuable. You already are. You don't have to perform to be seen. He already sees you. And no matter what labels the world has tried to place on you, heaven still calls you by name. Loved, worthy, powerful, anointed. It's time to stop questioning whether you're enough and start agreeing with what heaven already knows. The greatness in you doesn't come from your performance. It comes from your placement, your position in God's plan, your identity as His child. That greatness is still intact. It's still alive, and it's waiting for you to believe it. As we come to the close of this moment, hear this truth with all your heart. The richness you seek is not a distant dream. It is your divine birthright. You were created to think richly because your thoughts shape your destiny. You were made to live richly because the abundance of heaven flows through your spirit. So rise up with courage. Refuse to settle for less than the fullness God has prepared for you. Let go of every limiting thought, every shadow of doubt, and step boldly into the life of purpose, peace, and power that awaits you. Remember, the same God who called you from the beginning is with you now, equipping you to walk in victory. Think rich, believe rich, live rich, and watch how your world transforms. Your greatness is already known in heaven. It's time for the earth to see it too.